You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire.
Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a monthly reset. If you haven't seen one of these before, I have started doing these, I think I started them in like March maybe, in lieu of a wrap up because I don't like watching or filming monthly wrap-ups. I saw some other creators start doing monthly resets. Steph from Novelty Corner and Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte are the first people that I saw do this. I know Heather from Heo Booktubes and Riley from Riley and Marie have started doing these as well, and they're just so much fun to watch. I love watching people kind of reset their months, get prepared for the new month, update their TBRs, and share their favorites and all of the things. So the way that I break mine up is that I am going to kind of go over a quick couple of stats, share whether or not I read my TBR, some video updates, things like that, and then we're going to go over my least favorite and my favorite books of the month. We're actually going to also update my shelves for my videos in June, so this is going to be kind of a full one. I'm hoping to keep it pretty short. I don't want this video to get too long. So let's kick it off with a couple of stats. So it is Monday the 29th, so the odds are I will finish at least one more book before the end of the month, but as of the day that I am filming this, I finished 19 books for the month. I'm gonna pop up the little graphics that I do over on Instagram so that you can get a quick little overview of what I read, what I rated, everything. It was a pretty solid month, but I will say that the majority of this month was me binging Eden, Finley, and Saxon James, and then some other things in between. This is probably one of the worst months I've ever done on my monthly TBR. I didn't do terribly by any means, but I read one traditionally published book this entire month. And so I didn't get to almost any of the arcs that I said I was going to read. So 19 books read. I had 2 DNFs, which I will talk about in a little bit over in my least favorites section. If you want timestamps for anything, they will be down below if you want to pop around and see certain things and skip others. But the 2 books that I DNF'd were actually for my single moms vlog that I did earlier this month. It was Freeing Her as well as Don't Stop Me. I'll talk about them a little bit more in my least favorite section. I also talked about them in yesterday's video, I believe, in my recent reads. So if you want more thoughts on that, that video will be linked down below as well. And the big news for the month of May was that I hit my reading goal already. I hit 100 books. My 100th book was Line Mates and Study Dates by Eden Finley and Saxon James, and it's very fitting for the reading year that I've had, since this has been my latest obsession. Originally, it was going to be the next book in the Criminal Intentions series because I did start season 2 this month, but I needed an audiobook for my car ride back from Iowa, and that Criminal Intentions book doesn't have an audiobook. So I ended up finishing this in the car ride back home from Iowa. And that was my 100th book of the year, which was super exciting. So I finished my 100th book on the 21st, which hopefully means that I should surpass 200 books again this year, which, if you have been over on Instagram, is like a whole thing that I'm not even going to get into. But those are kind of the little stats things for the month. Let's go through my TBR really quick. Did I read it? Kind of. Of the 12 books that I said that I was going to read in my original May TBR, I read 6 of them. One of them I am currently reading, and that is Grey by Jacqueline Osborne. I am in the process of reading this book right here. The only trade book that I read in the entire month was A Duchess Takes a Husband, which was very kindly sent to me by Berkeley, so I'm really glad I read it. I unfortunately gave this one 3 stars. It wasn't like my favorite or anything. And then I did not read Best Men by Sydney Carter, which I am moving to my June TBR. It is Pride Month. This feels right. This feels right for June. So we're gonna do it. I also didn't read Jaina Goes Wild or Court of Undying Seasons. Court of Undying Seasons is also getting moved to June because it is also very, very queer and one that I definitely want to read for June. And then I did not read Hostage to Pleasure by Nalini Singh. I I borrowed this from my library twice and it got sent back both times because I didn't start it, but it'll happen eventually. And then Hucking Around also didn't happen. Look, this book is so long, okay? It is like it's 700 pages and it didn't happen. But it's getting moved to June. So maybe one day, maybe one day. Not my most successful TBR that I've ever created. I'm gonna blame it on the Eden Finlay and Saxon Jane things. I am not a mood reader normally, but man, that rabbit hole was deep and I apologize. Let's really quickly go through my favorites and my least favorites, and then we can get into some of the like B-roll stuff. So my least favorite books of the month, obviously the two DNFs. Like I said, I talked about these in yesterday's recent reads video. Don't Stop Me. I actively disliked, like, I did not like this book. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the characters. I liked nothing about it. And it made me actually angry while I was listening to it. Like, I hated it so much, I tried to return this book. And fun fact, you can't return books that you don't use credits for on Audible. So always use a credit, always. Because now I have this book. This book forever lives in my Audible library, and it makes me actually angry to see it because I do not like this book. Freeing Her by Anna Stone, I feel nothing about it. I again talked about this in the recent reads. I could not remember almost anything about this book until I remembered that it was a nanny romance, and then like some vague details came back. It's very forgettable. It's very bland. It just didn't do anything for me. The other two books that were my like least favorites were just 2 3-star books, so they're not bad by any means. It was the Rockstar Hearts duet by, I think this one's just Eden Finlay, and this was like a little novella series that came in during the fandom series. This one was just fine. The duet is these 2 little novellas that actually follow 2 different couples. They're both like pretty dang insta-lovey. The first one is a second chance romance, and the second one was an age gap romance. And they were fine. Gave them 3 stars. And then the other book that I'm putting here, it's not even that like I disliked this one. This one is like a high 3-star, not quite a 3.5, but a 3-star feels like too low. But it's Haven by Rebecca Weatherspoon. When I started reading this book, I was like, why don't people like this? This is amazing. And I loved the first like 50%. And I don't know what happened. It like lost steam at the 50% mark, and it didn't end up working very well for me. The love was like a light switch. And so like the buildup was so good at the beginning. And then yeah, it faded in the 50%, and the way that they started saying I love you, just it happened too quickly. And so it lost steam for me, which is really unfortunate because that first half was so good and so dark, and I was living for it. So strong start, kind of weak finish. But again, it feels really harsh to put it here because it's not a book that I disliked by any means. So that's it for like my lowest rated books of the month. Let's talk about my favorites. I had 5 5-star books this month, which is awesome. So let's just kind of go through all of these. These aren't in any particular order, it's just the order that I wrote them down in. So the first one is The Golden Ratio by Cole McCade, which is the start of season 2 in the Criminal Intentions series. This picks up a couple of months after what happened in the season 1 season finale. And I'm going to keep it kind of vague because, spoilers, we are many books in at this point. But essentially, much like a crime series, we now have a new bad guy, and our 2 main characters are kind of like pulled into this new investigation, even though they are still healing from a whole lot of trauma. And this new villain is intense. It is so intense. And this book was probably like the most graphic of the whole series, I would say, so far. So if you found that like the first couple of books were too much for you, season 2 is worse. So, but I'm obsessed. This is giving me like such intense Bones vibes, which is one of my favorite series of all time because the serial killer in here reminds me of one of the serial killers from Bones, and I kind of love it. And I read Paladin by Unley James, and it was such an easy 5-star book. I loved it so much. This is the start of the spin-off, or one of the spin-off series of The Necessary Evils. She's actually having 2 spin-off series, but this is book 1 in the Jericho Boys series, and we're following characters who are all vigilante killers, but they are not psychopaths. And they are each getting their romances. And this one was really good. This does follow a character who is dealing with a whole hell of a lot of trauma. He grew up locked in a closet and was essentially used as a child slave. And so lots of content warnings for that. It was really well done. I really liked their dynamic. At this point, it feels like I will never give a book in these series anything less than 5 stars, simply for the fact that I am so freaking attached to these characters and this world. Like, I have such an emotional investment in all of this that it just doesn't feel possible for me to give any of these books anything less than 5 stars at this point, because I am going into it so wholly and completely invested. Then I read Waiting for the Flood by Alexis Hall, which is this tiny little novella in the Spires series, I believe, which are all like super loosely connected. Like, you could read each of them as standalones, but this is just like one of the little novellas. I know Glitterland and For Real they're the ones that come before and after, are everyone's favorite. This was my favorite. I loved this. This is following one of our characters who lives in this apartment, and he has a nosy neighbor, like older neighbor, that he helps out, and he lives in a floodplain. His neighborhood starts to flood, and he ends up falling in love with a civil engineer who is trying to help contain the flood. And their romance was so precious. It was so good. I loved it a lot. Our hero, I don't want to say recently got out of a relationship. It's been quite a few years, but it was a very long relationship. And so he's having a hard time like starting again. You know what I mean? Like, he feels very stuck in that post breakup stage where it's like he hasn't redone the apartment. And so there's still like bare walls and like bare sections of the apartment and things like that. The two of them have this really frickin' sweet romance. It all happens over a pretty short period of time. And so you just kind of get to see the start of their romance. And I loved it so much. I thought it was fantastic. Another one that I talked about in yesterday's video was Moth by Lily Mayne. Favorite book of this entire series so far. I loved Moth. I loved the virgin hero aspect. I loved that there was caretaking in here. I loved the grumpy sunshine. I loved the backstories. I thought it was fucking fantastic. And then quite possibly my favorite book of the entire year is The Rest of the Story by Tal Bauer. Is Tal Bauer going to be my top book 2 years in a row? Probably. Who's surprised? Not me. This was everything. This is one of the most heartwarming, beautiful, heartbreaking, beautifully written books I have ever read. There was something so freaking magical about this book. I don't think there will ever be a found family that tops this found family. This book starts off in a really, really dark place. So huge content warnings for abuse and then trauma from that abuse, PTSD, all of the things, depression, anxiety. So much happens in this book and it gets so intense at times. But the way that all of these characters just fucking held onto each other and carried each other was one of the most magical things I've ever read in my entire life. And Tal Bauer's writing is unparalleled. Nobody writes like Tal Bauer. The romance in here was so sweet. Probably my favorite book of the year. I would be honestly shocked if anything surpassed this one. So I think that is it for the like book portion. The other thing we're gonna do is I tend to like film my videos like this, which is totally fine, but these are my mystery shelves. But I thought it would be fun to make like the stuff that I always film with, all of my queer books. And so I think we're gonna redo just a couple of these little shelves because a lot of my queer books are like over that way. So I think we're gonna redo these shelves a little bit to make it fun and festive for the month of June. So that is what we're gonna do next, but I am not gonna come back and talk to you. It's just gonna be some b-roll of me doing all of the things. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, let me know what your favorite book of the month was, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.
I would be up waiting for you if you had to leave. I would wait a lifetime if you were at sea. I just wanna say that I feel that our love is real. Maybe we should hurry up and seal the deal.
take you there.